Welcome to our Curious Amalgam, the weekly podcast brought to you by the Antitrust Law Section of the American Bar Association. Our Curious Amalgam explores the fascinating and increasingly overlapping world of competition, consumer protection, data protection, and privacy law. Each week, we bring you leading global experts on the most compelling issues of the day. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to another episode of Our Curious Amalgam. I'm Alicia Downey, and the title of today's episode is, Who is Fiona Schaeffer? Meet the new chair of the American Bar Association Antitrust Law Section. Every August, the Antitrust Law Section elevates the designated chair-elect to the position of chair for a one-year term. This year, Fiona Schaeffer has taken on the big job of chairing the section. Like the chairs who precede her, Fiona has specific goals and themes in mind for her term, which we'll talk about in this episode. And in addition to getting to know Fiona, we'll also meet Anne Catherine Faye, who is supporting Fiona as counsel to the chair. My co-host today is Anora Wang. Hi, Anora.
Hi, Alicia.
Anora, could I ask you to please do the honors and introduce our guests?
My pleasure. We have two guests today. First is Fiona Schaeffer, who is a partner in the New York office of Milbank, with over 25 years of experience practicing on both sides of the Atlantic. Ms. Schaeffer regularly represents clients in the FTC and DOJ investigations and follow-on class actions in the U.S. and internationally. Ms. Schaeffer began her legal career in the UK and has appeared before courts and regulators throughout the EU, as well as other significant antitrust enforcement agencies around the world, as well as in the U.S. Ms. Schaeffer is the former chair of the Antitrust and Trade Regulation Committee of the New York City Bar Association and member of the Executive Committee of the New York State Bar Association Antitrust Section. Our second guest, Anne Catherine Faye, is a vice president at the economic consulting firm Analysis Group. Ms. Faye applies her background and analytical skills in economics and finance to solve complex issues in litigation and business matters. She has consulted to numerous clients in the U.S. and Canada on a variety of engagements involving allegations of anti-competitive behavior and other antitrust matters, intellectual property disputes, securities and finance-related litigation, and arbitration matters. Ms. Faye currently serves as the vice chair of the Advertising Disputes Litigation Committee of the American Bar Association's Antitrust Law Section and as counsel to the section's chair.
Anora, can I ask you to go ahead and kick off the conversation with Fiona?
Sure, Fiona. So what's your path to your career as an antitrust lawyer?
Thanks, Anora. Well, it's great to be here with you and Alicia today. My path to a career as an antitrust lawyer was, like many things in life, not a linear route. It was more circuitous. But it started in a classroom when I was an undergrad. I did a program called Industrial Economics as part of my undergrad economics degree in Australia. And my professor was David Round, who was at the time also serving as a commissioner at the Australian Trade Practices Commission. That's the predecessor to the ACCC. I became interested in the intersection between law and economics and social policy and realized in the cases that we were studying that there was a fundamental impact that these investigations and decisions have on our economy and our daily lives. But at that time, Anora, I was also thinking I was going to become a tax lawyer. I spent a year in my final year of my law degree working on an honors thesis that was looking into the optimal treatment for capital gains tax. This was a very hot topic at the time in Australia,
right,
as we were looking to make some fundamental changes in our tax system. I then cemented my path to antitrust law when I went to Oxford and I took a course on European competition law and comparative law. And I saw that there were really significant differences in antitrust policy and case law in the US versus the EU. And they were driven by what I saw were very different political objectives. So Europe at the time, and I think this still holds true, was heavily influenced by the regulatory goal of open market integration. They wanted to take these collection of very different and disparate countries and create a single European market. Whereas that really wasn't an issue or a need in the US. At that time, there was Chicago School economics. There was a laissez-faire goal of economic efficiency. And in a number of cases, those different political and social and economic considerations led to a substantive difference in how antitrust law was applied. So I was really fascinated by that dynamic, how antitrust can look different around the world. It's constantly evolving with developments in law and economics, and there's a lot of room for advocacy. Your cases can also have a big impact, and it's kind of fun to read about them in the papers as long as you're creating good news for your clients.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I'd like to tease out several things that you just mentioned. For one, we declare victory over tax law. I think
Tax laws loss is competition law's gain.
I like to think so.
And I'm sure your training and your focused study on tax is still a very useful asset that you bring to the table. So a second thing I want to tease out is that your perspective back then, like, when you were just starting out, you noticed that the difference of competition laws in different jurisdictions, right? And now, competition laws in these jurisdictions are developing, sometimes in the same direction, sometimes not. Is there anything right now that you have noticed that's sort of like seeing competition laws in these jurisdictions going divergent ways that you think that's probably the most significant?
Well, one of the areas I'm most interested in exploring this year is antitrust and sustainability, and specifically whether antitrust can and should play a role in achieving sustainability goals, or if we should focus on the narrower traditional impact of collective action on competition. I think different jurisdictions are taking different and perhaps disparate approaches here. And one of the things I'd love to do this year is stimulate a debate about the appropriate role for antitrust in sustainability. I think the US has really yet to make its voice heard in this global debate, and I would love to encourage US policymakers and enforcers to have a significant role in that debate, because if they don't, I think it will be decided for us. Stay tuned for our series of debates on that very issue.
Yeah, we're very looking forward to that. So turning to your term as section chair, which is a big job within the antitrust section and also in the bar, what are your goals as a chair for the upcoming year?
Anora, I'm really excited to harness the energy of our leadership, which include younger lawyers like you who have a different viewpoint, who are excited to bring their energy to our programming. And I'm hoping that folks like you who've been in leadership for a while now will help us develop the largest group of young lawyers and economists that any section chair has ever appointed. I'm also proud to be bringing into our leadership this year a broader spectrum of representatives from across the competition and consumer protection bar, who I'm sure are going to express a variety of viewpoints from across the political and economic spectrum on the myriad of developments that we're seeing across antitrust and consumer protection law and policy around the globe. As you know, I'm coming into my year as section chair at a time when antitrust, competition, and consumer protection enforcement is at historically high levels. And we're simultaneously at a time of dynamic change in our technologies and the way we do business. So there is much material to debate and discuss. One of our initiatives this year is a global initiative to increase our international membership. And as you can tell by my accent, I have a strong interest in that. We have a goal of increasing by 20%, and we've appointed international ambassadors to spread the word about the incredible opportunities for connection, community, and cutting-edge programming we offer. And I might say at an incredibly low rate for international members. We're also increasing our areas of influence with new committees. One is the Foreign Investment and National Security Committee, aka FINS, and task forces. We have a new thought leadership in antitrust and consumer protection task force, which brings together leading academics and practitioners from across the spectrum. And last but definitely not least, our new artificial intelligence task force.
I think that's very good high-level summary, at least I get three main messages. One is basically cultivating a much larger crop of junior leadership, at which I very much appreciate. I think it would have like long-standing impact to the section and community, right? We would have more people in the pipeline, more people are interested and integrated into the section and be able to do things that they're excited about, right? And then second, I think this expansion internationally is also very appreciated. It would also have long-standing impact. I think the idea of having ambassadors in different jurisdictions is very creative and probably going to be very effective too. And also the focus is on some new areas to be organized as task force or committees. That's also, I think, very substantively very important. So I cannot even imagine, if you ask me how to chart out goals for a year, I couldn't even imagine a broader and even more long-standing impact spectrum of things to do. So we're very appreciative of that. So Fiona, you have just highlighted a wide range of very exciting things, and I know it's hard to claim any of them as your favorite, but would you tell us one thing that you're actually most looking forward to?
Thanks, Anora. Well, you're right. There's many things I'm looking forward to, but I guess one that is at or near the top of the list is our new in-house counsel leadership academy. We've developed this program as part of our goal of expanding our offerings for in-house counsel. So together with Harvard Law School and the executive education group there, our inaugural series, which is called Leading Through Change, has been designed for senior in-house competition and consumer protection counsel who are looking to sharpen their C-suite skills and develop the skills they need to take on new leadership challenges. We're kicking off with our first in-person session in Washington on November 8th, and that will be followed by several virtual sessions with Harvard professors from the law school and the business school. And they're going to be complemented by interactive sessions with leading in-house counsel and business executive faculty who are going to share their experiences in a range of real-life situations. We are offering a certificate from Harvard Law School Executive Education and complimentary registration to this year's Fall Forum, which is on November 9 in DC. That's another thing I'm super excited about. The title of that Fall Forum is Can Antitrust and Consumer Protection Keep Up with Artificial Intelligence? What you need to know. Everyone who is interested in AI and its impact on us as legal professionals, on antitrust and competition, and our lives as consumers must attend this program. And I just wanted to add that our in-house leadership program, the Academy, is limited to 60 participants. So you should get on and register now, or tell your friends who are in-house counsel who are interested in this program. We expect it to be fully subscribed, and those lucky inaugural participants will have, I think, a life-changing experience.
Now, Fiona, I've got another question for you, and that is, obviously you've got plans ahead for encouraging the leadership and the members to grapple with the implications of AI and sustainability, including climate change, as it relates to competition law, consumer protection, and so forth. But looking at things perhaps a little bit more practically, what legal trends do you see on the horizon as those that will most affect the members?
Alicia, without a doubt, I think the acceleration of AI in legal practice and in our clients' businesses, and frankly in our lives, is the biggest trend that we will all be grappling with this year and in this decade. I'm thinking of this decade as the big bang decade for AI, whether it's talking about use of AI technology in our legal practice or our clients' businesses, or how technology will impact the interests and needs of our clients. I predict that AI is becoming and will become an element within every segment of the legal profession and will become a legal discipline in itself. We've now got AI chips that can house a neural network efficiently, something likely better than a human brain. And these chips are going to provide the raw horsepower that AI needs for explosive growth. I think this will give us new legal challenges, opportunities, and questions across the spectrum of legal practice. And we're all going to have to come together as lawmakers, regulators, and legal professionals to think about what kind of regulation is appropriate to ensure that AI is used in a responsible and ethical manner that protects the rights and safety of individuals in our community.
Well, I think it's going to take a lot more than 1 year to figure all of that out, but I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Now, turning back again to your job at the section, you have been active within the antitrust section for years and now leading the section. What would you say is one of the best things about a section that you are really appreciative of?
I found the section has provided a unique opportunity, Anora, to develop your thinking, provide thought leadership, develop recognition among professionals, and most of all, lifelong friendships and connections. We provide what is now a global platform for debate about cutting edge topics, supported by the highest quality substantive programming and content. And we're an increasingly diverse and inclusive network for antitrust, consumer protection lawyers, and economists from around the world to collaborate and contribute to developments in our field.
The theme of this year, if there is one, is probably shaking things up, as I've heard. So you are going to change things about in the section. What is top on your list for things to be changed or improved?
Anora, I would love to improve some aspects of our technology that would give us a better ability to communicate and collaborate effectively using all of the technology available to us today, so that we can get our message out and our content distributed more broadly, and that we can have more meaningful virtual interactions and connections, because we're now in a world where that's as important as in-person connection. So that's a goal I have. I wouldn't say I am chief technologist, but I have others working with me in our group who I'm excited will bring forward some changes that everyone will benefit from.
And speaking of improved connections, we've got one last question for you, Fiona, which is your counsel to the chair is actually not a lawyer. She's not a counsel. I believe she's the very first economist to be appointed to that position. How did that come about? Was that intentional?
Alicia, you're right. That was intentional. I love economics and economists, and I thought it would be really cool to partner with an economist in my year as chair, because they offer a different perspective. They represent a different constituency, and I thought someone coming from an economics background and profession would give me different insights and perspectives that I might not necessarily come to on my own. And when I met Anne Catherine, I recognized in her not only a terrific economist and professional, but also someone who is a kindred spirit, who thinks outside the box, who's open to new ideas, and most importantly, is not afraid to tell me when my ideas maybe need a different point of view, and she can provide that. She's not afraid to do that even when it's different from my own. So I really appreciate the professional partnership we've developed, and I couldn't do my job without her. It's also been really cool to get to know her and her family, her daughter, Sophia, who's also an amazing young woman, and collaborate in all areas of our life, including the joys, opportunities, and sometimes challenges of bringing up teenagers.
Oh, that's worth a whole episode by itself. Turning now to our second guest, Anne Catherine Faye. Anne Catherine, can you tell us just a little bit about your practice?
I'm an economist and a vice president at Analysis Group, a consulting firm headquartered in Boston. My expertise is in economics and finance, and I help my clients in a broad range of industries and sectors such as technology, retail, and consumer goods.
What's your favorite industry to work in so far?
I would say for the past few years, it has been tech.
So just to follow up, Anne Catherine, so you said tech is your favorite industry at the moment. Is it because they're keeping you busy, or is it because they're presenting you with some novel issues to work on, to analyze?
Yes, I would say both of that. Tech has been keeping me busy, and obviously we're all aware of regulations being really focused on the tech industry. We get to apply novel finance and economic theories to issues that are so relevant to our daily lives.
So you're a super busy economist, and you also now have another full-time job as counsel to the chair of the section for Fiona's term. How do you see your role as counsel to the chair?
It's keeping me busy.
I don't know how you do that.
For people who aren't familiar, what are the types of things that you're doing?
So I would say that my role as counsel to the chair is akin to being a chief of staff, right? It's a multifaceted role where you get to problem solve ad hoc issues, you advise on different projects, you oversee multiple requests on behalf of Fiona and the section. So I'm truly at the forefront of the chair's plans during the planning year when leadership appointments are due and made, and the chairmanship year when substantive programming and content is being developed and offered to the community. So I would say, in short, I am where Fiona needs me to be, and I help in all ways possible to make this new section year a great one.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize one thing that you mentioned, and people might have not realized. Being a counsel to chair is like a multi-year assignment. You have been busy already for 2 years, and now this is finally you're actually executing a lot of the plans and actions that you have already planned with Fiona. Is that right?
That's exactly right. That this is year 2 of 2.
Is there any particular initiative or actions that you're particularly excited about?
Oh, yes. So, oh man, I'm looking forward to many, many things. Obviously, I'm looking forward to meeting and working with leaders and members of the antitrust section, but I'm also looking forward to the great slate of programming we have planned for this year with the themes of sustainability and AI at events to be held both in and outside the US. We're incorporating new ideas into our traditional events, such as Fall Forum and Spring Meetings, but we're also going to new places. For instance, in a 2-part debate series, we will have events at Howard University and at Oxford in the UK, where we will discuss the intersection of antitrust laws and sustainability efforts as they relate to climate change. And in another debut for the section, we're organizing in South Africa the first ever Antitrust Across Africa conference. So these are all very exciting innovations, but obviously we will continue to pay close attention to hot antitrust topics closer to home.
Now, having already worked with Fiona for 2 years and now with a very busy year coming up, how would you describe Fiona's leadership style?
I think Fiona's leadership is transformational in that she asks the tough questions. She pushes me and people around her to think about new ways of doing the work. She will test boundaries. She will support a healthy debate of ideas. In my view, that should be welcome for meaningful change. But more importantly, I think Fiona is a creative thinker who's open to novel, great ideas, which in turn increases collaboration among section leaders.
Is there anything that Fiona tried to push and test, and then the idea eventually did not become finalized?
I'd say yes, because it is her style of just being extremely collaborative with, again, section leaders. At the onset of certain projects or when we discuss novel ideas, she encourages everyone to participate. And yeah, of course, she might come up with something and we might discuss it and find that, well, maybe if we tweak her idea in a certain way, we could make it even better.
Well, we've had a great time getting to know both of you, Fiona and Anne Catherine. But before we let you go, we're going to ask you the question that we ask all of our guests to try to get to know you a little bit better on a personal level. And that is to tell us something interesting about yourselves that is outside of your professional life. Fiona, would you like to go first?
I can't think of anything. Anne Catherine, can you go first?
Sure. I'll give the usual answer, which is,
Good. So you have one.
I speak 5 languages and I'm a citizen of the world. So I was born in Canada, raised in Senegal, and I'm now a resident of Boston. So, and in between, I have been to places. My upbringing has really prepared me to embrace change and to just love going to places far and beyond.
Fiona, what's just one thing that's outside of your professional life?
Alicia, well before I decided that I wanted to be an antitrust lawyer, I had set my sights on a career as a rock star. Unfortunately, my parents were not prepared to support that effort. It was law or medicine, and rock stardom apparently just wasn't on the table in terms of helping me through college. But I do still revel on the occasion in getting up, doing some karaoke numbers, and I'm sure convincing the audience that I'm a far better antitrust lawyer than I am rock star, dancer, or singer.
Well,
but
you're a rock star in antitrust. That's got to be worth something. And now is time for our final segment. It's a little game that we like to call the Curious Hat.
And now it's time for the Curious Hat.
The rules of the game could not be more simple. We're going to draw a surprise question out of a completely imaginary virtual hat and ask both of you to do your best to answer it right on the spot. Anora, would you like to read the surprise question?
Right. So connecting to the theme that, tell us something interesting about yourself for people who probably only know you professionally, I would not know. So the surprise question is, if you could host your own podcast that's not covering antitrust, consumer protection, or data privacy, what would that be?
Anne Catherine, how about you first? If you could host a podcast on any topic outside of antitrust, what would you do?
Great question. I would say just life. I would probably call my podcast Just Life. Anything from career development, raising kids, dealing with issues of our time.
Well, I would subscribe to that podcast. Now, yeah. Fiona, this may be an opportunity for you to realize some rock and roll dreams. What would be the topic of your podcast?
Well, Alicia, as I'm thinking about this, one thing comes to mind, which is the topic of outsiders. I've always felt like an outsider in some sense, and I've seen that both as an advantage and sometimes challenging. An outsider because I'm an immigrant. My parents are immigrants. Their parents were immigrants. So we were always on the move and we're never really part of the accepted establishment. I think that also gives you resilience and a desire to enter the room where you feel the insiders are. And I would love my podcast to be an exploration of all outsiders. We could have famous outsiders, infamous outsiders, and ordinary people who feel they're outsiders, share their perspective on what an outsider means, how it's contributed to success in their life, challenges in their life, and ultimately how all of us at some point in our lives feel like outsiders, but we're able collectively to enter the room where decisions happen and make an impact.
Yeah,
that's something I'd be passionate to pursue in a podcast.
Well, that's a great, thoughtful answer. And thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Anne Catherine. Thank you to both of you for being wonderful guests. Thank you to Anora for being a great co-host, as always. And thank you to our listeners. Tune in to next week's Our Curious Amalgam episode.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Our Curious Amalgam, a competition, consumer protection, data protection, and privacy law podcast. It is produced and shared around the globe by ABA's Antitrust Law Section. The opinions expressed by the participants in this podcast are their own and do not necessarily represent their employer or other organizations. If you like what you heard or would like to become a member of the American Bar Association, please check out what the Antitrust section has to offer at ambar.org/antitrust. You can learn more about our podcast at ourcuriousamalgam.com. If you have comments, suggestions, or podcast ideas, please reach out to us at podcast@ourcuriousamalgam.com. Until next time, thank you for listening.